answer it?
It's House of Media.
Yeah. You got that.
Ready, Gabe?
It's
Yep.
good to me.
All right, we're gonna go ahead and start with an opening statement from Coach, then it'll be open for questions.
Got to look back a little bit to give an opening statement because I know everybody's here to talk a little bit about maybe last game and a little bit about the next game. As you can imagine, by Wednesday we've really moved on from the previous game as a team, and so much of my thought has been on the next opponent, as it would be every Wednesday. But looking back, I know that immediately after the game, I was just happy that the mindset of our team would likely be that we could play better, that we should play better, but that we also won. And that's been really rare around here. So, and then after watching the video, certainly still felt that way, but was able to hone in on some specific areas. I thought that, as is often the case with a 2-score lead, I think a smart team is going to try to expand on the lead without taking undue risk. You know, a costly mistake can make it a 1-score game. And so the fact that we weren't able to build on that 2-score lead in a more conservative style of offense is concerning to me. We should have been able to expand that lead. We were playing pretty solid defense, keeping the ball in front of us, but that's one other area where I think we could do better is we gave up some precision routes, some timing routes, some RPOs that kept drives going for Shadron and put them in scoring position. We shored up in the red zone, but that's not a plan. That's something to celebrate. That's something to hang your hat on, but it's not something to design. We're not hoping to be a bend but don't break defense. We're hoping to get stops early in drives, create good field position, create an advantage in time of possession, and that's one other area where I thought coming out of the game we could improve. And then I mentioned right after the game the ability to improve technically in the special teams, particularly early in the game, to uncharacteristically poor technical mistakes, one on our punt team and one on our punt return team, and so that led to some scary moments where we got a punt partially blocked, and then we had a near safety. Those could have been disasters. Could have been really, could have been a touchdown that we gave up there on the punt return. This week, new challenges, as they always are. We never want to get too hung up on trying to replay the previous game, so we learn from it, we move on. A real challenge in environment, going over to Colorado State. They've got a nice home atmosphere that they have created. They've been very successful at home. I think they're coming off of a tough loss in Seattle to the University of Washington, but I know that they probably have some confidence that they were in the game and had their chances to win the game against what looks like is a very improved Washington team. Athletes all over the field, really on both sides. Offensively, a returning quarterback. Colorado State has a returning quarterback with a lot of ability, very accurate, can throw the ball switch-footed, can throw the ball off balance and throw it accurately. Breaking in a new receiver core that looked competent on film, just maybe they found some success in the run game, and so I'm sure they'll try to balance that up a little bit more this week. A retooled offensive line from last year that we thought maybe would take a step back. I don't think they have. They look like they've taken a step forward. They're big and athletic on the offensive line and will be a real challenge for us to get some knockback with our defensive line and create some smaller running lanes. They've got a bunch of running backs. We thought maybe we'd see some different guys, but it looks like Jalen Dupree is kind of carrying the load for them right now, and rightfully so. It looks very strong and explosive. The tight end, Jackson Warren, he's really could be considered a receiver or a tight end. He plays well out in space, creates a matchup problem wherever he lines up, created some real problems for Washington, and will be a challenge for us as well. And defensively, they seem to have completely changed defensive philosophies. They're one of the most aggressive. I think they seek havoc rate, tackles for loss, sacks. They were able to get home on Washington's quarterback, which is not easy to do, and several times. and they create some real problems with the creativity and aggressiveness of their pressure package on defense. Any questions?
Coach, I know we don't want to look back last week too much, but as it pertains to this upcoming game, you talked about the coverage on the RPOs and the big gains that Shadron had. From our vantage point, coverage looks pretty solid on a lot of those plays. It was bang, bang.
Contested.
Exactly. What kind of tweaks or adjustments do you make? And I'm going to assume, but just in your words, what adjustments do you think that you guys will make or can make to kind of address that?
Yeah. So the best way I can say it without kind of giving too much away, a lot of those contested catches that you saw, we actually weren't lined up correctly, didn't take correct initial footwork, but I think you saw the athleticism and competitiveness on our guys to close late. And because they were good throws and good catches, I was really impressed with Shadron's personnel, their skilled personnel on offense, their quarterback. I thought those were Big Sky caliber players or better, and they were really impressive. So the fact that they made some catches on us is in one way something to address and get better at from our end. But on the other hand, I'm glad that we were tested, and I'm glad that we have room to get better. And I think our players are locked in on that right now.
With Costelli going down again early in the season, how do you kind of shake off that sense of, oh boy, here we go again?
Yeah.
Or is that something you haven't noticed yet?
Yeah, we didn't have that last year when Costelli went down. We had that, I think, when Hank went down the first play of Stephen F. Austin. And so I think everybody around the country right now, from NFL to high school football, your first and second quarterback take all the reps. And so that's the challenge now is keeping number 2 healthy, who's now number 1. We're all behind Eric now and confident in him. Eric did coincidentally, he picked up a lot of votes for a captain's role when we voted for captains last week. Peter was clearly the number 1 vote getter, but Eric would have been the next alternate. We had 2 captains and 5 alternates, and Eric would have been the next in terms of votes. That's pretty good for a backup quarterback. So I think there's a lot of confidence in him, as there was with Hank last year. I think if something were to happen to Eric, we could be in that situation again where people feel like there's something working against us out in the cosmos. But I don't think we're there right now.
How are you, maybe this is an extension of what you just said there, let me ask it out. How are you in a better place this year moving to the backup quarterback than you were a year ago?
Yep.
Because here we are, deja vu all over again, or whatever the cliche is. So how are you in a better, and why? How and why are you in a better spot now than you were last year?
The way the team is built around the quarterback, our offensive line is better. We've essentially been playing with largely the same offensive line for 3 years now. They're 3 years older, 3 years better, 3 years stronger, more experienced. I think that showed up last game. We just very few errors on the field offensively. We can play harder. We can play lower. We can get better. We can. I think we played a lot. We played very conservatively in our play calls, but we also played conservatively in our approach, especially on the offensive line. And so I think that group can get even better, but it's built to be better than it was last year. Our running back room has more guys that are they're tough to bring down. They insist on running the ball hard and with ball security. If there's not a hole there, they will push on the pile. It's a physical running back group that I think sees things well. Our receivers are the same receivers we've been playing with. Carver and Braden are now 2 years older. They've been playing for a while now. Carver starting at safety for his first year, but has made the transition as an older veteran player, responds well in tough moments. So I think it's just everything built around. I would expect that if Kiai was still our quarterback, and he's still an important part of what we do, and I think you'll see him at quarterback often this year, I think his effectiveness will grow because of the team around him and the weapons around him. And I think that defensively we're playing with a lot of heart and effort right now. We're certainly not perfect. We've got a lot to improve on defense, but I think that we have a group that will fight till the end, and that says a lot about the competitiveness of a team. And when the defense is willing to stay out there and continue to throw their body around all the way down the field and throughout the weeks.
I think you touched on this just a little bit last week, if I remember, but moving now to Eric from Peter. Last season, you had to make some adjustments with playing style, sizes, going from quarterback. It seems like it's going to be pretty much the same playbook. Eric just steps right in and picks up. Is that accurate?
Yes, I've alluded to that a few times. You're 100% right. They're similar, but not the same. You know, when we talk about Peter, you're talking about one of the fastest quarterbacks in America, including the NFL. That's a 10-600 meter guy. That's a challenge for anyone defensively. Eric is not that, but Eric does some other things better than Peter, as you can imagine. On a Division I team, you know, there are all throughout the depth charts, you've got strength and weaknesses. So Eric will have some things that we can tilt the playbook toward him. Same playbook, same game plan, a little bit different plays, you know, as first choice plays, I would say is the best way to say it.
How do you control Dupree? Flip that a little bit on looking at the defense. How do you control Jalen?
Sure, any running back from front to back. I mean, he does. You're asking about him specifically, so you know I'll go into detail. He's physical and he has speed. He doesn't waste a lot of time in the backfield. He doesn't make unnecessary. You know, sometimes you go into a week and you see a guy making some pretty nice jukes against air, and that's not him. You know, he seems to be businesslike in his approach. Seems to trust his offensive line. Seems to press the hole when it needs to be pressed. And is quick enough to make moves when he needs to make moves. But that's the biggest threat to a defense is a guy that, you know, when the hole is there, he's going to be there, not doubting that it's there. So, you know, we've got to stop him front to back. We've got to squeeze the up front holes, make things easier on the linebackers. And when the linebackers are, you know, when he gets past the linebackers, it needs to be moving laterally towards defensive backs that can kind of track him down. We can't just let him get vertical right through us from the beginning of the game.
I don't know if it was here last week or somewhere you mentioned week 1 you were just focused on doing what you guys do. Is week 2 kind of where it flips now that you have fresh film to see what CSU did last week? And is that like a week 2 every year that's kind of when that flip happens, or does going from a D2 to an FBS week 1 to week 2 play any role in that?
Oh, that's a really good question. Part of me going into the season, talking about that, articulating that, is also sending a consistent message to our team, which I'll sometimes try to do through the media as well. But every championship team that I've been around, you know, they can impose their will and they're going to run their system no matter what. You think of the great teams in any sport, there's oftentimes there's a play that comes to mind. The great Jazz teams, the pick and roll. The great Lakers and Bulls teams was the triangle offense. You know, we want to have an identity of the way we play offense and defense, and we don't want that to change from week to week. That can especially be a valuable opportunity to open up at home and in the first game of the year, because we're in an area that's comfortable for us. Our guys are used to the surroundings. That was a game we were supposed to win, regardless of the history of Chadron and UNC. Somehow, you know, you're supposed to win that game. You got more resources, more facilities, a higher level of football, and so I thought that was a great opportunity to really prove that to ourselves. But it's true every week. If we can't run our identity systems of offense, defense, and special teams against Colorado State, then the game is already lost before we've made the trip.
If UNC wins, if you guys win Saturday, or 2 wins Saturday, what has to happen on the field, Ed? What happens on the field? What might have happened on the field?
What would have happened on the field? Sure. We've got to move their front. We've got to pick up their pressures, move their front, move them off the ball, physically win the battle on the field. We are not. We talked to the team about it yesterday. We're not relying on Colorado State's players overlooking us. You know, that's not a strategy. We're not relying on them looking ahead to their bye week or whatever they've got going on in their future. We have to block and tackle, and so offensively we've got to block their front move the football on the ground. We've got to get better through the air. Some of that is play calling and aggressiveness and situation, as I alluded to in the last game. Defensively, you already said it. I mean, number one, we got to stop the run. We got to put them in obvious pass situations where we can play a little more pass-oriented defense. And so I think if we're dictating our share of the game, then we have a chance. If we're playing catch up, hoping for turnovers, trick plays, fake punts and field goals and stuff like that, that's not a recipe for winning. That's just waving the white flag before the game ever starts.
Somebody asked about, or you said about the environment. You have a lot of guys on the team this year who were with you last year and are going back to CSU. What does that mean? There are a lot of guys who were back from last year.
Yeah,
were there last year. So does that help?
Yeah, absolutely. Our collective memory.
Yeah.
Last year we had
They know what it's like to play in that stadium.
They know what it's like. Last year we had a substitution error on the first punt,
Right.
and then that led in part, not to take anything away from CSU and Torrey Horton, who returned the punt on us, but we opened with a 3-and-out on offense, and we have 10 guys out on the field, and so at that point we have to take a timeout.
Yep.
And now we got a guy running out there late, and the whole punt team is a little bit rattled, right? Well, and then the reason we only had 10 is because our 11th guy was kind of like checking out the crowd in the stadium, and really, I should say, one of our coaches was getting that player prepared for the defensive series, kind of forgetting that generally you go from offense to a special team to defense unless there's a turnover. And so the whole sideline was just not as organized as it could be in that moment. Well, that player now and that coach, okay, we're a little more experienced. We're not going over there to see what the stadium looks like from sideline level. Okay, we know that now. Let's go over there and block and tackle and cover and line up and substitute in and out of the game like we're supposed to. I hope that collective memory is kind of through the team and makes us stronger in those moments.
Jacob, Chris, you have any questions?